Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss about step response of second order systems. Learning outcome of today's session is understand the time response behavior of second order systems. That means after completion of this lesson, you would be able to analyze how a second order system should behave subjected to some specific input such as step input or impulse input. So let us start our discussion today. So before starting our today's discussion, let me tell you what we discussed in last couple of classes under this module. We discussed about first order system, step response, impulse response, ramp response. How should a first order system behave with different time constants, different DC gain. So those analysis we have studied in last couple of classes. Today we'll be analyzing system behavior in depth for a second order system. So let us start with the topics to be covered in today's class. First we'll be discussing about what a second order system is. Then we'll derive transfer function of a second order control system. Then different parameters of the second order control system will be discussed. And lastly, we'll be discussing about step response of second order system, and we'll be analyzing how step response of the system changes with the change in different parameters. So let us start with what is a second order system. As we discussed in earlier classes, that order of a system is defined by the highest power of S in the denominator of its transfer function. So a second order system should have highest power of S equals to 2 in the denominator of its transfer function. For example, if you can remember, an RLC series circuit or parallel circuit should be described by a second order differential equation, or transfer function of RLC series circuit will be a second order equation. So RLC series circuit can be considered as a second order system. Similarly, mass spring damper system is also an example of second order system. A second order system, as there are as highest power of S in the denominator of second order system is 2, so a second order system should have 2 poles. Now what is the transfer function of a second order system? General expression of block diagram of a second order system could be mentioned by this diagram, in which omega n, zeta are new term to us. So we'll be clarifying all these new terms in next slide. So as of now, remember, this is GS or forward path transfer function, and this is general expression of forward path transfer function of a second order system. This system is having a unity feedback. So based on this formula, this is very well known to us. Based on this formula, we can get overall transfer function CS by RS. So overall transfer function is found as omega n square by a square plus 2 zeta omega n s plus omega n square. Now, this is the overall transfer function which we have got in last slide, in which omega n is a new term which is known as natural frequency of oscillation, or it can be termed as undamped natural frequency of oscillation. Zeta is known as damping ratio. So what are this? Let me give you a simple example. Suppose a system response is like this. Here see, it is producing a constant amplitude. So the oscillation is not damped. But let us consider one example like this. See here, oscillation is damping, oscillation is decaying with the increase in time. So this kind of oscillations could be obtained due to this damping ratio. If damping ratio is not there, if system is having no damping, then system will have a sustained oscillation. This oscillation is known as natural frequency of oscillation, and this is known as damped frequency of oscillation. The damped frequency of oscillation is mentioned here. This damped frequency of oscillation present in a system is due to the damping ratio. Okay. Now, for this transfer function, we can easily obtain the poles, where the poles are located. So these are the location of poles. This denominator should be equated to 0 to get pole location. So minus zeta omega n is real part, and omega n under root 1 minus zeta squared is imaginary part. So this is nothing but, these poles are nothing but complex poles, complex frequency poles, in which this is the real part denoted by sigma and imaginary part is denoted by omega d. Omega d is termed as damped frequency. Now see, this part is substituted by omega d, so omega d could be written as omega n under root 1 minus zeta square. And zeta omega n is represented by sigma. So sigma equals to zeta omega n, which is known as actual damping. Now, depending on zeta, depending on damping ratio, a second order system may be classified as over damped, critically damped, under damped, and undamped. If zeta greater than 1, then the system would be termed as over damped. If zeta equals to 1, then it will be critically damped. If zeta ranges between 0 to 1, the system will be under damped. And if zeta equals to 0, the system will be undamped. So how, depending on zeta, the pole location will differ? Let us discuss that. Based on this equation, we can say what should be pole location if zeta greater than 1. So if zeta greater than 1, see here, if zeta greater than 1, then we will have under root minus 1 part, so a j part will be there, so j will be j square. So now if zeta greater than 1, this part will become a real part, isn't it? So this part will become a real part if zeta greater than 1. So real part plus minus real part will always be a real quantity. So for overdamped system, we will have two real pole values. Okay, so due to these two real pole values, overdamped system can be considered as two first order addition of two first order terms. Now, what happens for critically damped? For critically damped, zeta equals to 1. So if zeta is substituted by 1, then 1 minus 1 is 0. So this part will vanish. So there is no imaginary part. There is only one real part. Okay. So two poles will be located at minus omega n. Zeta equals to 1, so two poles will be located at minus omega n. Now, if zeta is ranging between 0 to 1, then what will happen? Suppose zeta is 0.1. So 1 minus 0.1 is a positive quantity. So under root 0.9 will be a positive quantity. So if zeta is ranging between 0 and 1, this imaginary part will exist and this real part will also exist. So real and plus minus imaginary part. So it will give us a complex pole value. So if under damped system, that is zeta ranging between 0 and 1, we will get complex conjugate pair of poles. Okay. Now, if zeta equals to 0, if zeta is 0, This term is 1. Okay. If zeta is 0, this term will vanish now. So we will have only plus minus j omega n. So this is purely imaginary part. So location of poles will be on imaginary axis. So a complex, conjugate pair of poles will be located on imaginary axis. There is no real part. Okay. Now let us move to next slide. This slide shows the pole location based on damping ratio. This green shows for overdamped system. Let us move to previous slide. For overdamped system, poles will be real. Both the poles will be real, and both the poles should be distinct. So poles are at different value, shown by green. Two poles are at different value, and both the poles are real values. For critically damped systems, zeta equals to 1. Both the poles will be located at minus omega n. So multiple pole will be located at same place, which is shown by pink. So for critically damped, both the poles will be located at same point, and poles are real values. Now for underdamped system, zeta 0 to 1, poles will be complex. So complex conjugate pair of poles will be there. So poles are complex conjugate pair, having real and imaginary both values. For an undamped system, only imaginary part will be there, and this is conjugate. So this red shows for pole location for undamped system. So based on damping ratio, by this we can show how damping ratio affects pole location of second order system. Now based on damping ratio, pole location will be changed, and due to that, whenever pole location changes, system transfer function will be changed, and system response will be changed for the same input. So this slide gives us an overview how system response is changed with change in pole location or change in damping ratio. So this is showing an undamped system having sustained oscillation. This is underdamped system, damped out. The oscillation is damped out with time. This is critically damped system, and this is overdamped system. So all these are step response of a second order system, of different second order systems. One is undamped system, another underdamped, then critically damped, and overdamped. Now let us discuss how can we get response equation, that is output equation of a second order underdamped system if it is subjected to unistep input. So step response of a second order underdamped system. This is now well known to us. This is the transfer function of a second order system. We are going to get expression for CT, that is expression for output with respect to time. Now as response is to be obtained for step input, so RT equals to 1, and consequently RS will be 1 by S. Now CS equals to what? RS into this. So CS equals to 1 by S into this. Now 1 by S into this is the entire transfer function, omega n square by this. Now see, this part is written here. We have, sorry, this part is written here. We have taken two extra quantities, plus zeta square omega n square minus zeta square omega n square. Why have we taken this? I'll come to this later. So in numerator there will be omega n square, and in denominator this part will give us s plus zeta omega n whole square, and this part will give us omega n square into 1 minus zeta square. So from this we can conclude that this part is taken extra so as to make it of whole square. Okay, this is for derivation purpose. Now up to this we have obtained in last slide. Now let us move forward. Now this 1 by s is placed here, s plus zeta omega n whole square plus omega n square and root 1 minus zeta square. So denominator part is kept as it is. We have made some changes in numerator part. This omega n square is written like this. So these two are same. We have taken some quantities false, extra. See, first we have taken s plus zeta omega n whole square plus omega n square into 1 minus zeta square. So whatever in the denominator part is there, that is taken in the numerator, minus s plus zeta omega n whole square is taken extra. So minus of s plus zeta omega n whole square. So finally this will be cancelled, isn't it? We have to keep omega n square at the numerator. So we have taken this false. So as this is taken, so minus of this has to be taken. As this part is taken, now if you add these two quantities, omega n square minus zeta square omega n square. So plus omega n square minus zeta omega n zeta square omega n square plus zeta square omega n square. So zeta square omega n square will be cancelled. Only omega n square will be there, which is there in the last equation. So hopefully this line is clear to everyone, how to rearrange this omega n square in this line. Now why all these have taken, that I will discuss later. As of now, see, s plus zeta omega n whole square plus omega n square 1 minus zeta square is there. Now it is broken into parts. So minus s square minus 2s zeta omega n minus of omega n square zeta square. So this whole square is broken here. Plus zeta square omega n square is kept here. Okay. Now the denominator part is remaining same. So s plus zeta omega n whole square plus omega n square 1 minus zeta square. So this part is kept same. Minus, see here, we have taken s common from this. From this s is taken common. So s plus 2 zeta omega n will be there. This 2 will be cancelled. So from this line you can write this one. Now, so after this, what we have done? See, consider this part together. So this part and the denominator part is same, only denominator is having one s extra. So this part, this part of the numerator and divided by this denominator part will give us 1 by s only. Clear? And this part divided by the denominator, ss will be cancelled. So we'll get s plus 2 zeta omega n divided by this part. Okay. Now we have got up to this in last slide. Now 1 by s minus this s plus 2 zeta omega n is broken again in two parts, s plus zeta omega n and zeta omega n. So this is broken like this, 1 by s minus s plus zeta omega n by s plus zeta omega n whole square plus omega d square, minus here it is zeta omega n, so zeta omega n by omega d into omega d. So omega d again taken false. Why these all these are taken extra? See, you know this is well known to you that inverse Laplace of this term is possible. Okay. Similarly, so s plus a divided by s plus a whole square plus b square. So as in denominator, s plus zeta omega n whole square is there. So zeta omega n can be considered as a. So s plus a whole square plus b square. So s plus zeta omega n, that is s plus a. So this will give us this term. Okay. So in order to perform inverse Laplace transformation, we have taken all these extra, we have subtracted sometimes, we have divided sometimes, so as to get this form. Similarly, in this part, this formula is also known to you. B by s plus a whole square plus b square. Inverse Laplace transformation of this term is also possible, which is as same as this, omega d by s plus zeta omega n whole square plus omega d square. So we can consider omega d as b. So b by s plus, this is a s plus a whole square plus b square. So that is why we have taken here this omega d extra, so as to get this in b by s plus a whole square plus b square form, so that we can perform inverse Laplace transformation. Our main objective is to get CT, but we are having expression of CS. So to get CT from CS, we need to perform inverse Laplace transformation. That is why all those extra part has been taken in the derivation. Now let us take inverse Laplace, let us perform inverse Laplace transform on both sides. So taking inverse Laplace on both sides, it will be like this. Okay. Inverse Laplace of this term is taken here. Now by linearity property of Laplace transformation, all this can be broken into parts. So L inverse 1 by s minus of L inverse s plus zeta omega n by this minus L inverse this term. Now inverse Laplace of 1 by s is 1. We know s plus alpha by s plus alpha whole square plus omega square. This term will have inverse Laplace transformation of e to the power minus at cos omega t. Okay. Similarly, omega by s plus alpha whole square plus omega square, its inverse Laplace transformation will be e to the power minus alpha t sin omega t. So based on these formulas, we can write here, this is a or alpha, and this is b or omega. So 1 minus e to the power minus alpha t, this is alpha, e to the power minus zeta omega n t into cos omega dt, minus this can be taken common, this can be taken out because this is not associated with any s term. So this is a constant term which can be taken out. Zeta omega n by omega d, e to the power minus zeta omega n t, e to the power minus alpha t sin omega t, sin of omega dt. Now, so this equation we have obtained in last slide. Now this can be written as 1 minus e to the power minus zeta omega n t can be taken common, cos omega dt plus zeta omega n by omega d. Omega d can be written as omega d equals to what? Omega n under root 1 minus zeta square. So omega n by omega n under root 1 minus zeta square, omega n will be cancelled. So zeta by under root 1 minus zeta square is there. So this part will give us this. E to the power minus zeta omega n t is taken common. So this. Now again let us take this part common, under root 1 minus zeta square. So as under root 1 minus zeta square is taken common, so under root 1 minus zeta square will be multiplied with cos omega dt plus zeta into sin omega dt. Now for simplicity let us assume zeta as cos phi. Hence under root 1 minus zeta square will be sin phi. So Ct equals to 1 minus c to the power minus zeta omega nt by under root 1 minus zeta square into sin phi. This term is sin phi. So this term can be replaced by sin phi, cos omega dt plus cos phi. This is cos phi. So this zeta can be replaced by cos phi into sin omega dt. So finally we'll get this as expression of output of a second order underdamped system subjected to unit step input. Okay, so this is the expression. Now let us analyze the expression and let us try to obtain the graph which is varying with time. So here the output response is varying with time like this. This graph is obtained based on this equation. Now see here, this is a sine part. So output is a sinusoid. But this sine part is associated with exponentially decaying component. Okay. So it is a damped sine wave with exponential decay. But as this exponential decay is subtracted from a constant, so it will be exponentially increasing. Okay. So based on this equation, you can say this is a damped sine wave where damping is reducing. This damping depends on the value of zeta. Okay. Now this part is known as transient part, and then this part is known as steady state part. What is transient part? What is steady state part? That we already discussed in last class. So for a second order system, there are some important parameters such as MP, TD, TR, TP, TS. What are these parameters and what are the significance of these parameters? That will be discussing in next class. So I'm skipping this part from today's lesson. In next class, we'll be discussing what is MP, what is TD, TR, TP, TS, all this. This part is known as tolerance band. The desired output is 1. As step input is unit step input is applied, so desired output is 1. But if the system reaches around 98% of total output, final output, plus minus 98%, then we can say the system has reached its steady value. Okay, so plus minus 2% tolerance is acceptable. In some cases, plus minus 5% tolerance is also acceptable. So that depends on the application of the system. If a system needs more accuracy, then 2% tolerance will be considered, and if a system needs less accuracy, then 5% tolerance could also be fine. Now, what is the effect of damping ratio on system response? See, this is the pole location of a system. We have studied how, depending on zeta value, pole location differs. So let us consider different zeta values: 0.2, 0.4, 0.6, 0.7, 0.9. When zeta is 0.2, that is shown by blue. So if zeta is 0.2, zeta is 0.2. So this is the real part. with zeta 0.2. So real part is less when zeta is less. As zeta increases, if zeta increases, then this term will be increased, so real part will be increased. So this blue shows zeta equals to, for the pole location for zeta equals to 0.2. This red shows pole location for zeta equals to 0.4. So let us first consider this real parts. See, as zeta increases, this real part location of poles will be increasing. That means poles will be shifted away from the origin or away from the imaginary axis. So real part will be increased. Now, if zeta increases, what will happen? This is zeta. If zeta increases, then this term will decrease. If this term decreases, then imaginary part will decrease. So more the zeta value, if zeta value is increasing, so zeta is increasing in this direction. This is for 0.2, 0.4, 0.7, 0.9. As zeta increases, this imaginary part will be decreasing. So for less value of zeta, pole will be located towards or closer to imaginary axis and away from real axis. If zeta value is much higher, then pole location will be like, it will be far away from imaginary axis, so real part will be more and imaginary part will be less. That is, it will be much closer to the real axis. Now based on zeta, the system response will also be changed. This peak amplitude will reduce with increase in zeta. Peak amplitude reduces with increase in zeta. If zeta increases, see, for first case, for blue one, this is the settling time. This much amount of time was required by the response curve to get settled down. But this red shows this is the settling time. For this pink, this is the settling time. So settling time decreases with increase in zeta. So with increase in zeta, peak response will be reduced or amplitude of the response will be reduced. With increase in zeta, settling time will be reduced. That means system will respond faster. So these are some effects of zeta on system response. Okay. In next class, we'll be discussing about time domain specification parameters such as what is settling time, what is rise time, peak time, maximum overshoot, what are the significance of this parameters on system response, along with some solved numericals will be discussed in the next class. So let me summarize today's class. What we discussed in today's class: we have considered the second order system. We have obtained step response of the second order system. Once step response is obtained, we have analyzed that system for different damping ratio. Thus we obtained what is the effect of damping ratio on system response. Also we have observed how system poles location could be changed with change in damping ratio. So based on damping ratio, how system behavior would change, that is much clear to us now. So as of now, I'm ending up here. Meet you all in next class. Thank you all.